Hey gang, John here, the Renaissance Garden Guy, coming to you live from Hardiness Zone 5B6A, we'll call it Hardiness Zone 6 to make it easy. Feeling particularly fat and happy, and maybe fat and unhappy. Coming back after a day away, day and a half away, so I'm back here in my garden, and we're gonna sort of pick up where we left off. Last video, I showed you the concrete footing that I poured for limestone wing wall for my limestone planting feature. So I'm gonna sort of pardon the angle of the camera here. I'm trying to get a decent shot where there's some light without standing in the sun like last time. Last video I was staring into the sun and I was squinting. It was horrible. So I can actually see you now, and pretty much without sun. And I'm going to show you, we're going to pick up where I left off last time. I've already poured the concrete footing for the little limestone wing wall for the planter. And I'm going to show you today what we're going to do is try to get this short little limestone wing wall built, mortared up. And one of the things we're going to do is, because of the location of this planter and the way that it's going to be finally set up, the frogs that live in my existing frog pond and the planned frog pond, and there are quite a few frogs, and we've got tree frogs and toads. They're going to be able to get up high in these planters. The tree frogs already do, and they may end up getting behind the planter. And I'm going to show you all that in just a little bit. So we need to provide a means of escape for these little frogs. We're going to make sure that if they do get down there, they can get back out and into the garden area. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to accommodate them. We're going to actually provide, in masonry, a similar concept is called a weep. It allows moisture, water, condensation, etc. to escape from behind the masonry wall. And basically this is like a little weep for frogs. And I'm going to show you that in a second. I'm going to sign off for now. I'm going to show you the footing, what it looks like. I've already got a couple of limestone blocks just set on it. They're not mortared in place yet, but they're set there. And you can get a look at those. So let's do that right now. And I'm going to show you the little weep I make. And we'll take some intermittent breaks as I build this wall, and you'll get a chance to see this thing go up. So again, you're seeing a lot more of me here because, as I mentioned last time, I put some weight on. And I didn't do myself any favors on my little day and a half away. Took a little trip and ate even more. But that's neither here nor there. So let's get this thing going. Let me show you what I'm talking about doing, and maybe you guys will build your own limestone walls after you see this one. See you in a bit. Okay, gang. So here's the completed concrete footing, already partially buried. Next year what I'm going to do is raise the level of all the soil so the footing is level with the ground. The top of the footing is level with the ground. You see I've placed a couple of limestone blocks right on here. They're not mortared in. I've just put them there so to get an idea of layout. And this little gap here is where the weep is going to go. Where it's a 4-inch piece of Schedule 40 PVC, and what it's going to do is allow little frogs to escape if they get back here behind this planter, because there's going to be another wing wall on the end of this planter, and the frogs will have access. They already do, actually. The tree frogs are able to get up top of this planter here, and but they're great climbers and jumpers. It's our pond frogs who end up, because of the staggered, slightly elevating, gradually elevating nature of this limestone planter that I'm going to build, they'll be able to get up here. And if they end up getting back here, I need a way for them to get out. So I'm going to continue this limestone wall, and right here is where this little frog escape hatch is going to be. So that's the game plan for right now. I'll be back in a bit. So these are the tools of the trade for making this frog escape hatches. We're going to use a portable bandsaw. This one's by Milwaukee, fabulous tool, to make the cut. This is the piece of Schedule 40 PVC that we're going to use. We're going to cut it to a length of 9 inches so it gets nestled nicely in that limestone wall that we're building. So Schedule 40 is a good product. It withstands cold temperatures easily, won't crack or split. And since it doesn't have any water, we're not going to have to worry about splitting and cracking. It's going to be encased in mortar. So we'll go ahead and we'll make this cut. And then after we cut it, we're going to scuff it up, the outside of it, with this sandpaper. because it's pretty smooth, and we want the mortar to adhere to it. And if we scuff up the surface, make it a little bit porous, you know, it should sit in there really nicely in the mortar and not move around, not crack or separate. So that's next, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, so we got the first course of limestone block laid. See, I got a kind of the relief in the mortar joint here. I mean, it doesn't look so engineered. It's got more of a natural feel to it. This is just the first course, see, it's kind of relieved there, and we've got the weep in place, the frog escape tunnel here. So I'll mortar over this top course, a nice thick mortar joint. Yeah, this is not going to be an ideal connection here, but it's going to be sort of really hidden from view. Nobody's going to really see all that much of it because of the bushiness of the plant, but I want to maintain this continuity of the limestone to the fence line. It just looks a lot better like that, and you know, it just gives it a more complete finished look to the planter. So anyway, that's the first course. When we mix this mortar, we mix it up kind of stiff. We don't want it loose and runny, because we want it to sort of hold its form when we set the limestone on it. So I'll show you what that mix looks like, the consistency of it, in just a bit. But that's the first course, and it should be a nice looking wall when it's done. See you in just a bit. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to show you the consistency of the mortar and a couple other things you need to do when you're laying courses of masonry. Got a bucket of water here. This is the limestone. These are the next stones I'm going to use for my next course. Just soak them in water for a little bit, just for a few seconds. These are kept out in the elements, so they're not completely dry. But this gets any kind of dust off of them, and releases any air that might be, you know, the surface porosity of the limestone. It makes for a better grip with the mortar. So we're going to get those out in just a second. The tools, you also want to kind of keep those wet so the mortar doesn't stick to them. Got a few different trowels and pointing tools, kind of thing. Now, this right here, this is pretty good consistency for laying block. It's fairly stiff, which is good. If it's runny, you can't control it, and it doesn't maintain the sort of the structural integrity as you're building the wall of the individual blocks. They just stuff just kind of seeps out, oozes out. So this is a pretty good consistency. And when I'm away from it, I keep it covered with the paper from the bags. Again, it doesn't pay to buy this stuff in bulk and sand with a mixer, because this is just such a small job. So you buy it in bags and mix it up. A little more expensive that way, but when you don't need a lot, it's the best way to do it. So that's the consistency, and that's it for right now. All right, gang, here we are. We got 3 courses of limestone block installed here. Again, we're using kind of a stiffer mortar mix, so I got to kind of do a little bit of hydrating for the mortar as we go, so it doesn't dry out, because it's a little bit on the stiff or dry side. It's not soupy and runny. So see, it's not going to be an exact seamless fit, but again, most of this is going to be obscured by the vegetation, by the plants. This big rose of Sharon bush, which is actually only, it's still immature, it's still growing, it's getting bushy. And then these hostas, when they're growing, they're just massive, and they sort of totally obscure the section of the wall. But it's a nice look, it's a nice fit. It completes the look of the planter as it wraps around and dies or ends right up here at the fence. So it looks like I'm going to end up doing 3 more, possibly 4 more courses of limestone. I've got a lot to do before it gets dark, and that's not too much longer from now. So I'm going to sign off, and I'll be back in just a bit. Okay, we got 4 courses done. Looks like it's going to only be 2 more, which is great. We'll use a little bit of a fatter mortar joint. Again, as we're laying these, we want to make sure that the courses are level, and they're pretty good. So probably have to come up just a little bit higher on this side, so a little bit fatter mortar joint here, or a thicker block. You know, we're right up near the top, so it's kind of critical that we make this perfectly level up here. It's really tough. You sort of want to get a general approximation of level because none of these blocks are uniform. They're all individual, pieces of limestone, Indiana buff limestone. The blocks are varying thicknesses, so you just try to keep a general consistency of level, an approximation of level, and that usually works. So it's not a bad looking wall so far. Little frogs are going to be able to get in and out, and we're almost done. See you in a bit. So here we are. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 courses finished here, and I used some pretty thick slabs, stones. So this top course, I'm going to do one more course. So I'm going to select some thinner stones and put a little bit of a thinner mortar joint in because I want to keep this height uniform here, or as close to uniform as I can. Again, it's not super critical because this is during the summer months, spring, summer, fall. This is obscured by vegetation. In the wintertime, you'll see it. The whole point was to just continue this existing limestone planter to the fence line, so it doesn't look like it just stops in space. It's a weird look. So this should look pretty good when we're finished. We're going to do one more course, and I'm going to sign off for now, and we'll look at it when it's finished. All right, gang, we're finished here. Got all the courses in. You see I put a thinner limestone block on the top to make sure that there's level, it was level all the way across, continuity. So it doesn't look bad. Obviously I'm looking at it from straight on, but it's never going to be viewed from this way. It's going to be viewed sort of from an outside angle. It basically, all it does is it continues the limestone wall all the way back to the fence line. So it's solid. There's a little escape hatch for my frogs so they can get out if they end up falling back here, because all of this is going to get filled with gravel and liner, weed barrier, and it's going to be pretty much all encapsulated here. The frogs will be able to get up here. They're going to have access from the waterfall area, and this area all along this side is going to sort of gradually raise in altitude. So if they're out in this planting feature and they get up into the waterfall area, they'll be up in these planters. And my tree frogs are always up in these planters. If any of them fall back here, they'll now be able to get out. And this area back here is all going to be brought up to this level. It's going to be shored up, and the frogs will be able to come through and then just come right out into the planting features, right back into the garden. So that's it. What we do for our frogs, I don't know. I love those guys. Don't ever want anything to happen to them. Nature always comes first. So that's what's going on. It's John, the Renaissance Garden Guy, over and out.